When you don't have much experience with fresh pasta, it can be pretty intimidating to make it. And the truth is, it actually is a bit of a challenge, which is why I'm really excited to show you this dead simple pasta recipe called Pici. Welcome to Actually Italian. I'm Sal, and I've been living in Italy for years now, and I'm on a mission to help you cook authentic regional Italian cuisine. Pici are a very traditional pasta found in Tuscany, and it's one of the simplest you can make. It doesn't require a machine, a pasta making machine. It doesn't even require a rolling pin. Everything's made by hand. It doesn't even have eggs in it. It's just flour and water. It's as simple as it gets. There are also a lot of traditional sauces that will go with this pasta that they would do in Tuscany. The one I'm going to show you today is perfect if you're a garlic lover. Another thing that makes this a real simple pasta to make is that you're going to use flour that you can find in just about any supermarket. I've got what's the equivalent of all-purpose for us. We don't have actually all-purpose flour here in Italy, but we have the zero grind. All-purpose is basically the same thing. Then we have semola or semolina flour, which is a durum wheat flour, which you can find in just about any supermarket at this point. Other types of pasta need their own specific flour for it to make, to have it come out the right way. Like 00. A lot of people know, oh, we use 00 for pasta. Well, that's only for certain pastas. This specific pasta, we don't even need that 00. In fact, it wouldn't be as good if we used it. I've got equal parts semolina and all-purpose, and I'm gonna mix them. Now, these are equal parts by weight. It's very important that you weigh your flour and you don't just use cups and teaspoons and things like that. I've got the recipe for this in the description. So if you want the exact measurements and all the rules of thumb and everything, then head down in the description box and I've got a link to the printable recipe. So I'm just going to mix these together and get them pretty homogeneous, and then I'm going to add some salt. I don't always add salt to my fresh pasta. Each pasta has its own thing, and some really do not need or shouldn't have salt. This one should have some though. The cooking time in the water is pretty quick, so it doesn't really have time to absorb the salty water. All right, so we've got this all mixed. I'm gonna make a little well here. I want it where I can make sure that none of the water gets out of this and kind of runs. This is kind of a small portion too. I would normally make more than this. I've got half of the amount of the flour is water. And I'm not going to use all of it right now. I'm going to do a little at a time just to make sure that we can get this mixed well. We just pull a little bit of flour in at a time and mix it with the fork right from the edges. And you see it kind of collapses into it. That kind of helps it mix slowly, so that way we're in control here. All right, I can add a little bit more of that water now. I don't think we're in danger of this like spreading out. I'm just kind of go like this. All right, we see it's coming together nicely here. Now, another thing to think about too is I have some extra flour to the side here. When you're making fresh pasta, the conditions are going to also impact how much you use. So if it's real humid, you're going to need less water. If it's very dry, you're going to need more. So we want to be able to adjust as we need to. Also, the type of flour that you use is going to determine how much water you need. All those things. It does take experience. The semolina in this, we mixed them together for a couple of reasons. We could have used all semolina, we could have used all-purpose. But that durum wheat, that's the same flour that you see in dried pasta when you get in the packages. So it has a nice chew to it. With most fresh pasta, you don't get, and you're not expecting to get, al dente. But by having that semolina in there, and also no egg, that's another reason why we don't want any egg in this, we're going to get that kind of chew that we're looking for. All right, so now I have to use my fingers here because it's getting more doughy. And we want to make sure we get as much of this incorporated as we can. We're also looking to let the dough tell us what we need to do, because we don't want to force all of this flour in there. It's going to absorb what it's going to absorb, and that's it. Now that it's kind of coming together, we can start kneading here. And as we knead, this is going to incorporate more flour. A mistake that a lot of beginner pasta makers make is that you use too much flour. And when you do that, the texture is just not good. It's a little too tough. It doesn't have that kind of soft mouth feel that you want. Even though we want a little chew in this one, we don't want it to be a hard pasta. So I can see that 100 grams of water was enough for about this much. This has to go to the side now. As I knead, we might see that we need more. I'm going to start the kneading process, and I'll add more flour as we knead. So I'm just doing it simply with the palm of my hand, the end of the palm. I'm pushing in and away, and then I'm folding it back like this, going with the palm again, pushing it away like that. Fold it back in, and then push it away. And that's how the kneading process goes. And you just keep repeating that. You can do it all with one hand. We're going to knead for about 5 minutes. Now, you don't want to time it for like 5 minutes because there's a couple of factors that kind of go into how long it needs to knead. I scraped the board here with the dough scraper because at this point we really don't want any more flour coming into this. This is not sticky. You can see it's soft, it's pliable. I've only been kneading it for like literally 30 seconds. And that's all the flour that we need in this. It's very common to just keep putting flour. We don't want to do that. You only want as much as it's supposed to take. You see, this is not sticking to the board at all. It's nice and smooth. And I can just continue to work it like this for the next 5 minutes or so. And if it does start to stick, I've got this right here, I'll just add it. So I'm going to continue kneading this for the next few minutes, and then we'll check back. I've been kneading for less than 5 minutes, but I know that it's ready. Now first, you press it in, and you see it's like the consistency of Play-Doh. It's soft, it's smooth, it doesn't stick at all. Also, if I push with my thumb, see how it only tears a little bit there? That's another sign. If I pushed like this, it would really tear apart if it wasn't ready yet. But here's the real key. I'm going to show you a little hack here. We're going to cut it in half. See, there's no holes in there. Now, if this wasn't ready yet, you'd see it like kind of speckled. It would look almost like a sponge. It would have little holes in there that happen when you're kneading it, when you're working it, the air gets in there. So as you keep kneading, you push it out, and it should be nice and perfectly homogeneous like that. That's how you know you're done kneading. Now that the dough is ready, we're gonna wrap it up in some plastic wrap, and we're gonna let it sit room temp for about a half an hour. And that's gonna let the flour absorb all the water. It's gonna develop the gluten a little bit. It's gonna relax. It's gonna make it easier to work with. In the meantime, we're gonna work on the sauce. There are a lot of different traditional sauces that go with Pici, but one of the most popular is all'aglione. Aglione is elephant garlic, which this is not. This is just regular old garlic. Elephant garlic is hard to find, but the reason they use it is that it's very mild. It's not as strong as regular garlic. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take these cloves off here. We're going to use about 6 cloves, which would be equal to about like one of the big pieces of elephant garlic. I mean, they're huge. And it's traditionally grown in Tuscany. That's what they use. We're going to take about 6 of these, and I'm going to do a little hack to kind of make it more mild and resemble elephant garlic. You don't have to do this step. You can just take the garlic and make the paste out of it like we're going to do in a minute if you really love garlic. But I'm going to do it this way just because it's going to be more similar to the way that they would make it in Tuscany. We've got some water boiling, and I'm going to put the garlic cloves in there and let them quickly boil, just for a minute. That's gonna take that garlicky edge off a little bit. After they've blanched, we're gonna drop them into a food processor and blend them up into a paste. I've added a little bit of olive oil here just to get the process going. We wanna get it as fine as you can to make it as paste-like as you can. We don't want a lot of big chunks in there. Essentially, we want it to look like this. We'll add that paste to a pan over medium-low heat. Make sure it's not too high because it can burn very quickly. We'll put a little bit of olive oil in the pan just to make sure that it doesn't stick as well. We want to constantly stir this because there's a lot of sugar in the garlic that will burn. It'll stick to the bottom of the pan. So keep stirring, especially as you hear it sizzling, but we want to cook that rawness out of the garlic. So it'll take between 3 and 5 minutes. You don't want to walk away. When you see it starting to stick a little bit to the pan like this, scrape a little bit. Try to get that off of the bottom of the pan so that way it doesn't get bitter. At this point, we'll add the passata. Tomato sauce, to me, is the perfect sauce for this pasta because it has that acidity that really works well with the texture of the pasta. We'll add a little bit of water to the sauce too, so that way it doesn't cook down too much and get too thick. We want this to cook for about 20 minutes. It will thicken up. I'll show you the density that we're looking for when it's done. We also don't want to put any salt in at this point because as it thickens up, it reduces and we risk making it too salty. We've had it cooking for about 20 minutes now, and I've been stirring every few minutes just to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. This is the texture that you're looking for. It's nice and dense, it's nice and rich, it's sweet. At this point, we can add some salt and then check it for seasoning. That sauce is done now, so we'll get back to rolling out the pasta. It's been 30 minutes. I can feel like how just silky smooth it feels now. So that rest time is going to really make this process go easier. So we're going to cut off a little knob here. Another thing I want to mention, I've switched my board. The board I was using before is mainly for when I make pizza dough and bread dough. This is specifically for pasta, so it has a little bit of a rough surface, and that's what we want. You'll notice I don't have any flour here. I put a little flour, semolina flour here. When I finish the pasta, I'm gonna put it there so it doesn't stick to the board. But when we roll this out, we need it to stick a little bit. We don't want it to be non-stick, so we don't need flour. We need that little rough surface so it kind of grabs it. We're going to use just the fingers, inside of the fingers, just with gentle pressure, and just start forming like a little log, basically. And then I want to kind of, as I'm going out, you spread your fingers out and see how it stretches it. Now that it's about here, now we're going to use two hands. We're going to do the same thing. So I keep spreading my fingers out like that, and you see it's widening. And we just keep going. Now I don't have to spread with my fingers so much. Now I'm actually going to be, as I'm pushing, I'm pulling out at the same time, so that way it makes it longer. And we can kind of go one side at a time. And then go like this. See how long that's getting now? The shape basically is almost going to be like spaghetti. I'm going to have to cut this in half because this is getting a little too long. Essentially, it's like spaghetti except a thick spaghetti. This is like really going nicely here. It doesn't need to look perfect. We don't want it too thick though. See how thick that is? That's like way too thick. We want it like kind of like a little bit less than that. So that's the goal that we're going for. And again, we don't need it to look perfect, and that's one of the things about Italian cuisine that I love, is that you're not supposed to make it perfect. It's supposed to have imperfections. It's supposed to have spots where it's a little thick here, it's a little thin there, because they want it to look homemade. You know, you want it to show that you made it by hand. It's not made by a machine or anything like that. I'm just going to continue to do this, and again, just kind of pulling out as I go. This one needs to be cut again because it's just getting a little too, it's still too thick there. So we want it about like basically like half of that thickness. That's essentially what we're looking for. So I'd say it's about twice as thick as spaghetti. So I'm going to lay this over here on that flour, so that way it doesn't stick to the board, and then I'm just going to keep going. If you have one end that just is a little too thin, and you can't really roll it out anymore, but this side is too thick, then a little trick is just to put your hand over that end and kind of pull it this way. So that way it doesn't get any thinner, and this end does. There. It's pretty much ready to go, but you could do this in advance. At this point, you could freeze it, you could make your sauce and then cook it, you could even use it the next day. Here's what it looks like when it's done. Since we made the sauce while it was resting, we're gonna boil it right away. When your water is salted and boiling, you wanna add the pasta. Be as gentle as you can, because we don't want it to get broken here. This is going to cook very quickly, 2 minutes at the most, and you know it's done when it starts to float. When all the pasta is floating, it's done, and we're going to put it into the sauce. All right, it's floating now. It looks like all of them are up there, so we're going to turn on this burner with the sauce, and we're going to put it directly into the pan. We want to cook the pasta with the sauce, so that way it has a chance to absorb it, because a fresh pasta is like a sponge here. It's actually going to absorb quite a bit of that sauce. I've got a little bit extra on the side just in case too. And the reason I'm spooning it out like this is in case we need to loosen that sauce up a little bit. We have this pasta water here that's full of the starch, and that's going to help kind of loosen it up if we need to. We don't need long. We don't want to turn this into mush. It's not as delicate as you think that it is, but at the same time, it can actually, you can overdo it here. All right, we'll just give it a toss, get all that sauce incorporated, and that's it. This smells amazing. I can't wait to try this. I just need a little bit more cheese on it. This is a pecorino cheese. This is pecorino Toscano, so it's from Tuscany. You might not find that, but you can usually find a pecorino romano where you are. That's a lot easier to get at a local supermarket. You can see it thickened up quite a bit, like it really absorbed that water, and so this is probably twice as thick. Let's give it a taste. Again, this is not going to be the prettiest thing to eat right now. The texture of this is amazing, and this is why you don't want to use eggs in this pasta, and you use a little bit of semolina, and you use a little bit of the all-purpose, because it has that chew, it has that texture. It's not soft, it's not silky. It almost is like an al dente pasta. The amount of garlic is just perfect in this, because it is pretty mild. You can really taste the garlic, but it's not that pungent garlic. Contrary to popular opinion, Italians don't really eat that much garlic, and that's why this is one where they would use the elephant garlic and not generally regular garlic. If you're looking for a perfect weekend activity, this is a perfect pasta to make. If you have some people helping you, you can get this done in about an hour. It's just one of those things that you're going to be really happy that you made it from scratch. I'm going to get back to my pasta, and I'll see you on the next video.